Rawr. Welcome everyone to a Mere Mortals musing episode. It is a Halloween themed episode. Unfortunately, we're both a little bit lazy. If you'll harken back to last year Halloween,
I can't even recall what we were wearing.
We were over at the base of the Point Cliffs. You were in your Minions onesie.
No, I can recall. Yeah.
I was in my sexy Dora outfit.
We went full on that day.
Yeah. That day we went hard.
It was a warm day too.
Yeah, I think, the inspiration for that was we actually recorded on the Halloween day. Today, this episode is just coming out on Halloween, hence my sexy bear outfit, Arar, and Juan's witch's hat. Oh, yes, I also have my pot of honey.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of where I could put it without it just falling over and...
balance it on your head the whole podcast.
Me and my honey. So
yes, Halloween. Happy Halloween to everyone listening to this, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. If you celebrate. We don't really celebrate it here in Australia.
Yeah,
but
not much.
Whatever. Today's episode theme is going to be about motivations.
Oh, the big words. Motivation.
I can't remember if we've had a themed episode of motivations before. I don't think we had one particularly on it. So, we're going to dive into it today. What got me thinking about this was page 269 of this book that I have here.
Humankind, Wonderful History? A Hopeful History. Humankind, A Hopeful History.
What did you say? Human Mind?
Yeah, Human Mind. Didn't see the K.
Good. So, there was this this chapter here called The Power of Intrinsic Motivation. And he was really just getting into, why do people do things? He was looking at, a bonus is a complete waste of money. He was sort of talking about the differences between the capitalists.
The what?
A bonus is a complete waste of money.
A bonus?
Bonus. So like a bonus at work.
Gotcha.
So basically he's making an argument here, if you ask surgeons, if you create the incentive for surgeons to make give me the book back because I do need it.
Yep.
If you create the incentive that, hey, you will get paid on a per surgery basis, well, they're going to want to do more surgeries, and they might not look at what's actually best for their patients, which is what their job entails. So similar things for big law firms. If you're paying by the hour, then they're going to do more hours, whereas that hours might not be useful. They might be creating more work for themselds to be able to do that.
Sorry, I got in my mind. I was like I disagree with him. Is it Roger? What's his name?
Rutger.
Yeah, I disagree with Rutger there. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Yes, you could make bonuses the right way, but if he's saying that structure of bonuses, I agree.
Yeah, so he's just saying this happens more often than not. I'm not sure if he necessarily says that, but he's looking at that.
Yeah.
He's looking just at, okay, you got to be careful about the motivations, the intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, incentives. Incentives seem to matter a lot, and I just thought it'd be a good thing to go down. So I wrote here: incentives are surprisingly hard to align. So if you are trying to incentivize people to do things, make them motivated to do things.
Align to what though?
To whatever the goal it is that you want. So if you say, I want this. You've got a non-profit designed to help out, let's just pick a really specific one, women's rights in African countries.
Sure.
What are the sort of things that you could do to make that happen? And particularly when you've got some money involved, how can you do that? Because when you've got money involved, it seems that you create something like, hey, maybe one way we can do this is by motivating people to get out and put more post propaganda things up on the walls of the city or something.
Yep.
So then you might have fantastic idea, we can get the message out better. But then you find, they're just bulk printing, pages and pages of stuff. Maybe the copywriting on it is shit. Maybe the message isn't really good, but they're just more aligned now to posting things on the walls, and they're not actually trying to do the
original
thing.
Task. Yep.
And then just motivations in general. What maybe getting more personal. So what we think about motivations, what motivates you, what motivates me, why we do certain things. I thought it'd be fun to go down this.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind around the whole intrinsic motivation and whatnot is that I think that there is a misalignment what maybe you believe the motivation of other parties or entities is and what they are doing is actually serving their actual like motivations that they're actually after. So what I mean by that is, let's say a bank. A bank's not motivated by proxy of what they're trying to do for their bottom line to give you, like you specifically, Kyron, or you, me, Immortalite, the most perfect way for you to interact with the bank and the minimal way, or they're wishing you the best of health or something like that. Like that's not their intrinsic motivation. For them, it's a company, it's an entity that's trying to give back money to shareholders and have value. Their core thing is we want to have more money in our coming in, basically. Now P&L, we want to be black. We want to be like from 2 billion to 3 billion to 4 billion. Like that's whatever motivation drives them. Now, yes, you can then go down the path of, well, you could do that in different ways. You could like really extort people out of it. You could build things that people really enjoy using. Sure, that's the means that come behind it. But I think their intrinsic motivation is make money. And I think if you look at them being like, well, oh, why aren't you serving me the best way? Well, the reality is that's not what's motivating them. Like the reality is that's something different. So I think there can be a misalignment between what you believe is like should be the things that people get motivated by and what it isn't. I think the other problem that I've always had, so like take a personal example, I think I've always thought of fitness. So I think we've talked about like, oh, I want to have a partner who enjoys fitness or who understands fitness, because I'm also someone who likes to do a lot of training, right? That's my motivation is fitness. So from one part of it, and so I want someone who can understand that. But then, someone will tell me, or even you might tell me, like, oh, I'm working out, or I'm doing like 3-hour workout, or I'm doing this, whatever, an exercise. And when I equate like fitness to, well, no, if you're not training like high intensity, if you're not like sweating hardcore, so I'm like, oh, no, how's that motivation to be doing training and whatnot? But that's just like, that's my belief, or like that's my view of that motivation, or at least what it applies to me. But it definitely doesn't apply to like everybody else, for sure. And that I've often had trouble viewing it, I guess. And I guess similarly, probably there'll be other examples like that. But back to your original question. So intrinsic motivation. Which path do you want to take? You want to go down the personal path?
Yeah. I think that'll be a good place to start. And I also want to, even though we've just talked about money here, we've talked about money a lot recently. So
yeah, we don't go down that path.
The more we can stay away from that, the better, I would say. So let me ask you, well, you already brought up fitness. So what motivates you to do fitness? Why do you spend so much time working out?
Let's see if we can dissect this down. So I'd say, little backstory about me, folks. So I think it was 14. So 14 or 15 years old, I was already playing a lot of sports. So I was doing tennis or swimming and soccer, all sort of different sports.
I think we can all understand that. It's fun as a kid. It's just pure fun. There's no thought behind why you're doing or why you're wrestling in the backyard. Yeah. It's not like you want to get good at wrestling. You just want to have fun with your friends.
I wasn't the type of person, though, that, so sometimes there can be kids who get forced to go play a particular sport or go whatever.
Yeah.
I was more along the lines of, I want to be active. I want to be doing stuff. So I really enjoyed that. And then I swam for a long time, and I built, I guess, more of a physique for myself. I felt healthier. I felt fitter. I could play sports in high school, and I was like, I could do basically like any sports, which was great fun. And it was probably born out of that the motivation came on, I want to continue training. And then that led into going to the gym. And my motivation, I think, originally was I want to get bigger. So I was very, very small back in high school. Like, I'm still short, same thing. But I would probably be in like 60-something kilos, right, back in high school. So I was like, okay, no, I want to be bigger. I think it got driven as well from soccer. So, for anyone that's played soccer and you go into like the men's group, like if you go from like teens into men's, one of the things you quickly find out is, because you're probably in the lighter side of things, you just get pushed all over the place by the men.
It becomes less fun. You're playing with adults who take it more seriously. You have, they're stricter with regards to showing up for training. Training becomes less about playing around with your friends and more you're working on this specific drill to get better at this thing. So there's definitely a shift from the pure 100%
enjoyment,
unadulterated. It's in the word unadulterated. You're not an adult. It's just pure essence of fun, and then it's becoming something a bit different.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, the only way to continue that story was my motivation then from a fitness, gym / other movement perspective hasn't evolved over the last, whatever it may be, 11, 12 years that I've been doing it now. Like, it very much began on, I'm doing it for becoming bigger, I want to look better physically, I want to be able to lift more, and then it shifted into, my motivation is to be lifting really heavy, seeing videos of people, or maybe like, to do some bodybuilding. Then it shifted again into, okay, now it's trying to do like different body part training fit around my work schedule. So the motivation started shifting a bit more. And now over the last couple of years, it's fully shifted into functional / health related aspects, in terms of I'm able to do it around my normal like workday lifestyle, but I'm able to do lots of different movements like gymnastics or Olympic lifting or normal powerlifting or etc. So now it's much more balanced motivational, I guess, aspect to it, but it's changed. Like, it's evolved over the last 12 years. How would you say your motivation or intrinsic motivations has evolved over the last 15 years out of your training? But actually, and I'll summarize that, while a lot of my intrinsic motivators have changed slightly, so there've been different reasons that motivated me to come to train, I think always it stayed there no matter what for me. I just enjoy moving. Like, I just enjoy movement. So like, whether it's swimming, whether it's like lots of walking, whether it's any of that sort of stuff, like I just enjoy moving as opposed to standing still. Like, I'm more of a person that I would love to be in the ocean for an hour than laying on the sand for an hour. So I've always had like that motivation of like, no, I prefer that over the other.
Yeah, gotcha. I'll tackle it via two ways. One is the looking directly at the fitness aspect, because that is, once again, a big part of my life as well. And then, expanding that onto how just my motivations in general and how I think about why I do the things I do has cool. changed. So, fitness one, very, very similar. I just play stuff for fun. The reason I took up soccer when I was 10 years old was because my best friend Lee played soccer. So it was, I want to go do stuff with Lee. So I played with him. Moving forward into the future, I think there's this you go through puberty, you start being able to think more about, there's me interacting with other people, and now there's this sex drive. Now I can see further into the future, like, if I do this thing, this is going to be bad for me in half a year's time, versus, I'll just do this test, or I won't do this test. Yep. Doesn't matter either way. So I think, going through, I had a lot of just natural temperaments in my character, pretty more erring on the side of perfectionism than not, more erring on the side of I'll do something well rather than not, more erring on the side of I'll do one thing rather than 10 things. So that helped me out in a lot of ways and helped me stick with soccer for a long time, for example. Then moving into the gym and calisthenic stuff, I think that's when you can start to see, the motivations aren't fun anymore, it's other things. So for gym, for example, it was I wanted confidence, I wanted to I didn't like the way I looked, so I wanted to improve that. And just moving the body is fun. Like, moving the body gives you those good endorphins, which you can sort of think your way into, like, I want those endorphins, I'll go do this thing because I know it gives me the endorphins, that sort of thing. Nowadays, it's I purely acknowledge, like, it's a futile pursuit in many ways. It's there's lots of good things, I definitely recognize the health aspects of lifting weights, for example. It's good for bone density, it's good for muscle growth. You want to have strong muscles when you're old, you want to have flexibility when you're old, and you can develop that whilst you're young, etc. But I'm well and truly past the point of that, because you can get that doing it for half an hour a day. I think you can get most. I'm not sure there's any health benefits for doing something 3 hours a day versus half a day for fitness wise. So handstands, for example, it's just such an arbitrary goal. It's not going to help me in any other aspect of my life. It's super unique. Like, I don't ever plan on making money from it. I probably could if I wanted to, but I don't plan on it. It's truly just a surrogate activity, is what the Ted Kaczynski would say, which it's just an activity that you've created in your life to fulfill something that would have been more life and death in the past. So running to chase after the buffalo, that's not a surrogate activity, but just running for the sake of running, okay, that's kind of a surrogate activity. So
Gotcha.
I see more of me doing things like that. Then as a whole, like motivation-wise, I think I'm starting to be able to look a bit deeper and stuff. So a couple of things I wrote down is, as much I rail against growth, for example, I think growth for the sake of growth is stupid, but I do acknowledge enjoying getting better at things. So, I do like to improve at something, being able to look and be like, oh, I'm better than I was the other day. What's the motivation behind that? I don't know. There's sort of like why thing. If you keep asking why, you just go around the circles.
I don't know if there's any. I don't know if it goes any further than like. I'm just trying to think through that. Like, that sort of progression of it. Why do you want to be better? I think there's something to be said about you feeling like you're improving as a human, like going back down to all the way of evolutionary. Is it a thing that if you're better than the day before, then you can accomplish something else that you couldn't do the previous day before, so there's some enjoyment or there's some safety in that as well. Maybe something like that. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, if I can be better than when I was yesterday, then I feel like I can perform tomorrow unlike how I could perform today. Something to that effect, right? So it's like, it's that good endorphin release of like, oh yeah, I'm getting better as an overall human. Maybe there's some motivation, like fitness-wise, yeah, I can imagine that, but just motivation-wise or intrinsic motivation, just broadly across a lot of other things, just in the knowledge of like, okay, the actions I'm taking today makes me better tomorrow than I am today, that sort of level. I think there's some intrinsic motivation in that, which 100% is, I think, joined in with growth, and there's some downsides to just focusing on the growth, but there is some motivation in that as well.
Yeah. I view growth for growth's sake as dumb as money for money's sake. It's what...
Yeah, like
the reason behind that sort of
why a million? Why 10 million? Why a billion? Why 2 billion? Like, what's the difference between to you of 2 billion and 3 billion?
Yeah, like
is there a difference?
Why would having 10 billion people be better than 8 billion, for example? Declining birth rates, blah blah blah. It's like,
I think this way, so away from money, but back onto, let's say, just fitness again. I'm just going to say, like, so what does it matter that I can bench 160 or 180 or 200? So, like, from a growth perspective, I would say, it doesn't mean squat. Like, it doesn't mean a literal squat. It doesn't mean anything. Like, it doesn't actually... If I could... I can't bench over 160 right now. But would anything change if I did 180 or 200? If it's a specific thing about, like, maybe because you're doing a comp or something, okay, maybe I'll give you a pass. But generally for me, no, there's literally, like, no other meaning apart from the fact... from a growth perspective. But there is meaning that I can form in going, well, if I do 161... and then if I do 162 the next day or after training for a long period of time, that's an improvement on what I used to be before. And there is motivation that you are improving yourself, but not for the sense of the continual growth. Like I don't know if that's well explained, but I can in my mind's eye I can go, there is a difference between just continually growing and then the fight that comes and the fight and the progression that you get on that journey of just getting that little bit better.
Yeah, well, and you sort of touched upon something, which is you get more nuance. So if you think about it, to go from 160 to 161 isn't just you rock up the next day. That could be a 3-month thing, and that's way too long to just be doing it for growth for growth's sake.
Well, just to give you an idea, that particular one, I did a 160 bench. I'm going to say maybe start of last year, and it took until yesterday to do 161. So until last year. Now, was I like really going hammer at that particular?
Going for that
no,
one, yeah.
I wasn't. But I've been trying to progress everything in a general sense. And even to me, like that one extra kilo, I was like, oh wow, that's motivating. And I was like, oh wow, I do see some progress. Not for the growth, not for the fact that it's this number to that number, but because like, oh cool, I've put things in place over a long period of time, mixed with intrinsic motivation and discipline, I guess you'd say, to actually come out with the actual success, the outcome that you want. And it's like, oh cool, that solidifies the motivation behind it, and then motivates me to then just continue on with that as well.
Yeah. That time lag is there has to be something way deeper than just I like being able to improve because it's too long.
It's too long.
You don't see that
because you just go on improving something else. It's really easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you take up another activity that's going to be very, very easy to continually progress. Like, let's just say, what's something that we just have not done at all? Like say professional dancing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, let's just say salsa or ballroom dancing. None of us, like, either of us have ever done, like, proper dancing. We could say, well, let's go do that for a couple of weeks and I'll progress. You'll be, like, really good. So, for growth perspective, awesome. Now, not to say we wouldn't want to do that. Like, say, me personally, I don't think I'm ever going to do ballroom dancing. But if I was really focused on just growth, I'd be focusing more on that. But for me, like, my motivation still lies in the type of workouts I'm doing, the type of lists I'm doing. And so for me, yeah, it's not around the growth of how long that might take. It's the actual progression and the sort of the daily regime of doing it that gives me that motivation of, continue to do it.
Yeah. And as you get older, I think you recognize some things that pop up across different areas that you might not have expected. So you mentioned moving the body before. I'm very similar. I haven't done dancing. I've done little, couple of classes here, did some yesterday. That was fun.
You did.
And I recognize, you know what, actually having control of the body and being able to move, that's cool. I wish I could do more of that. And that explains why, certain moves in soccer are beautiful. Like, I really love when I would be able to just chest the ball and it would just go exactly where I would want it to go.
Yeah.
Scoring a goal, don't give a shit. But being able to, like, doing the perfect pass, hell yeah, that's beautiful. Same thing with this. It's no surprise to me that we're outdoors now. I just like being outdoors.
Yeah.
No surprise that when I exercise, I go outdoors. When I used to read outdoors a ton. I used to study outdoors. I used to do everything outdoors. Part of that is now moved indoors and whatnot, but it makes sense to me that if I don't get enough outdoor stuff, I'll find something to do outdoors and do that.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
I think your motivations, you'll start to pick out the things where you can't you'll get to the point where you can't explain why. Do I like being outdoors? I don't know, man. Maybe it's the sun. Maybe it's the variety of things I can see and maybe the spontaneity that can occur when you're outdoors. Maybe there's more opportunities, etc., etc. Why do I like being on my own? Why do I like doing solitary things?
Yeah.
Reading and learning languages and things like that.
What would you say to someone who, because I have heard this before, and maybe me and Mortal like to listen to things, and going, well, Curran, I have no motivation to do anything. That's not to mean that you're clinically depressed and can't move from your bed. Like, that's another thing entirely. I'm not suggesting that. But I'm saying the type of people that says, I'm just not motivated. Like, I get up, I'm tired, I go and do a job or do whatever, and I'm just not enjoying it. Maybe I'll look after, I've got a partner, and I'm looking after for like 5 days, I'm with her 5 days out of the week. And then I go home, I just don't want to do anything. And that might include a hobby, that might include fitness, that might include eating well. What would you say if you were like in that position?
Because I've been in that position, man. I know what that feels like.
What would you say would be a good first step?
Yeah,
I wouldn't say what's the path, because that's a silly point. But from your own experience, what would you say? Be like, what's the one step you would have gone back and gone, okay, that might have been the first step to try and get back into some sort of intrinsic motivation.
Yeah,
find that.
Number one would be, are you doing the stuff that you know is bad for you, that everyone knows is bad for you? Are you fucking around with your sleep? Are you staying up until 3 a.m., waking up at 9 a.m., and then the next day crashing or staying up super late? Are you staying up for 36 hours at a time? Are you eating shit? Do you know you should eat more vegetables, but you're not? Are you, doing like the minimum amount of exercise, whatever that is, just walking around the house? Those sorts of things, because I think if you get stuck in that trap, that's a surefire way that everyth's going to suck.
So let's say it's something like, just not sleeping enough.
Yeah. So so the first thing is you probably know that you're doing something wrong, and you should just try and fix that first, and then because you'll be like, but even if I start sleeping right, how is that going to make me more motivated to earn money for a job or make more friends
or make time to go to the gym or make time to go for a run?
And I would just say, like, yes, it'll feel that way, but you'll be surprised. Like, you'll surprise yourself with how if you just fix one thing, the rest will start to come afterwards.
Do you reckon that would really work for someone? Like, if like someone's really not motivated, would you just be able to say like, just start doing it?
No, like the convincing part and all that sort of stuff is. But I mean, if they're asking the question, they want to know. So if they're not asking the question, they're just happy doing their thing. That's totally fine. And then the other part of the motivation part is like, okay, But what if I have all that stuff and I don't feel like doing a thing? Like I feel like life's meaningless or pointless. And that's when I'd just be like, yeah, you have to create your own meaning in a way. You have to trick yourself. That handstands give me a lot of meaning, but there's nothing in them.
Yeah, but it's a clear example, right? Like, say you say like, oh, yeah, handstands give you a lot of meaning, and you like make time for it and all that. Like, pretty much everyone else who isn't into handstands will be like, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah,
You're like, well, what the hell?
100%. So I think you have to find the thing that makes no sense to anybody else, but you just do it. You just do it for yourself. Like, or maybe you do it for other people. Maybe that's the motivation. Maybe you enjoy volunteering. Maybe you enjoy, trying to change the world Facebook-wise, and whether you do that correctly or not, Zuckerberg has changed the world for the better or for the worse. That's up for debate. But yeah, I would be saying like a lot of life is about tricking yourself into finding meaning and making yourself happier. I would say like a huge portion of life is doing that. And whether that's explicitly or whether it's just like, oh, I just like doing this thing, I'm just going to go do it. That's fine as well.
Yeah, I just think when I ask that
what
question...
What about you? What do you think? If I asked you the same thing?
If someone asked the question, or like someone was sort of supporting, I'd probably go down the path of using groupthink and using external motivators rather than the internal ones. Because if someone's coming and asking the question or thinking in my mind like, oh, I don't have any motivation to do whatever, fitness, work, wake up early, etc. I'd probably say there is, and I can recall myself, like, it's quite hard just like then internally just be like, oh, well, I'm just going to do it. And like, if you're really not motivated to do it, like, it's very hard for you to go and push yourself to go and actually do it unless something like drastic comes up.
Are you imagining someone who is not motivated, like they just say, nothing interests me? Or are you imagining someone who knows they want to be doing something but aren't doing it? What do you imagine?
I think someone that knows that they should be doing something and not doing it.
Okay, I was thinking more of someone who just didn't want to do anything. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
more.
I'm not thinking holistically, although it could be like a lot of things that they don't want to do. I'm thinking like this is the example of, let's say, someone that knows that they should be fitter or should be healthier, but they're not motivated. So all they're doing is just buying Maccas every day and not training and not sleeping well.
Yeah.
So, like in that path, I kind of say like, okay, it obviously seems like there's some issues from an internal motivation perspective that you're not fixing. I would go down the path of using external motivators to get you on the right path first, and then building, like, letting that develop internal motivation levels. So, whether it might be like, oh, just join a group, like join groups in terms of like whether it needs to be food-wise, like Weight Watchers or something else where you're in a group together, whether it's a forum, whether it's, rather than signing up as a single person to go to a gym, you go to like F45, or you go to something where it's like in a community, in a group. So I feel like that community group mindset can get you into some motivation, because then you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for the group, you're doing it for the community, and it kind of steps you away from just little old you, and you're now, I guess, like responding to a broader group within, like that you like are interacting with, and then that might be able to actually build, or at least, not it might, you should then turn that into internal motivators. Then you can just drive yourself and just keep on doing. Like with me, with gym particularly, I remember I didn't start going to the gym on my own from the very beginning. I think I went a couple of times, but I wasn't motivated to do it. Like I remember going, like, let's say 5 times when I was like in year 11 to like a local one near us. And I went and I did the usual things of like benching and looking at like what was the type of workout should I be doing. And it wasn't fun. Like, it wasn't fun. I went, but it was quiet. I just didn't enjoy myself. And that's why I stopped going. Like, I just swam. I didn't actually keep going. And it was until second year of uni when a mate of mine was like, oh, I go to the gym. We kind of like live nearby. Come with me. And we had a group of mates. And then we started going for a year or two with like a big group of mates. And that was fun. Like, it was a big group. Like, I was motivated to be there, not to train, but to be as part of the group, and the fact that we were getting fitter. And then that transitioned into, I'm getting stronger, I'm getting bigger, and then there was internal motivators started getting built up around that as well. So I guess I had it, but not for that exact domain of fitness. So yeah, I'd probably suggest something like that.
Yeah,
okay. I'd say something like that if for particular people. But I think that there'd be definitely different ways to go about that. I mean, like, it just reminds me of I've heard Lee's Jocko say this a couple of times when what do I need to do, Jocko, to eat better? And his response is like, well, just eat better.
Just do it.
That's it. I mean, and that is the most direct way to do it. But we're not all Jocko. We're not all like that disciplined to do it. So you do have to put some other things in play to maybe get those motivation levels at a higher point.
For sure. I wanted to ask you. Okay, so motivations are good, and you're motivated to do things, and you're going out there. Do you have any checks and balances to make sure that your motivations are doing good for the world, are linked to something higher or deeper purposes or anything like that?
That's a very good question. I don't think I do. I don't think I've got too many checks and balances to say that my motivations are doing well in the world. Or I'd put it another way. I don't think I've got any
not
checks
doing
and
harm or something.
I was going to say I don't think I've got any checks and balances in place really that say the things that I'm doing or my motivation is linked with reduced suffering in the world. Like that doesn't really apply in a lot of things that I can think of off the top of my mind. Do you reckon there's any for you?
I think I'm starting to develop some. So when I think back to, let's just take mining for example, I'm a realist. I know that we need power generated by coal. You can't just switch it off immediately. But do I particularly want to be part of the system that helps promote that, which implicitly, like, I'm getting paid by Rio Tinto when I was working there. That and my, one of the goals that was very front of mind at the whole mine, permeated throughout is we need to get as much coal out of the ground as quickly as we can to sell this on. As we can't control the price, but we can control how much we get out. If we can lower the unit cost of ton pulled out of the ground, good, better.
Yep.
So what does that result in? Well, that results in us collectively trying to make as much coal as possible.
Yep.
And so, then you could see how, if there's more coal in the market, makes it cheaper, makes more companies want to burn more, etc., etc. So in the long run, you'd probably want it the opposite way, in that coal is becoming more pricey because it's hurting the world, etc., etc., that sort of stuff. How much was my individual portion of that contributing to, let's just say, global warming or whatnot? A tiny percentage, but there was probably enough where there was way deeper things that made me not want to work at Rio Tinto anymore.
It wasn't that. But I mean, in your mind, like when you were working there, did at any point in your mind cross, I'm motivated to be taking coal out of the ground? Like, was there a motivation in like? Was there a motivation in that, or the motivation was the fact that you were getting paid to do that job?
I think there's the thing with motivations. I think they link up, they merge in that, and those two become one and the same.
If you tell me you were motivated to get coal out of the ground, okay, that's a different. Like, I wouldn't. Like, I can't imagine me thinking that way. But if that's how you were imagining, being like, I'm motivated to get coal out of the ground.
I would argue it's the loop. It's like, I'm motivated to get coal. Maybe it started with me getting paid, and then it's like, okay, I'm getting paid. That's the motivation. Then the motivation would be like, I get paid more if I get coal out of the ground, because if I get more coal out of the ground, I get more money. Yeah. But that because part gets blurry, and so the motivation becomes, I'm just motivated to get coal out of the ground. I think that happens a lot. I think if you look at the, any of the really bad things that happen in society, or like, we've all met bureaucrats who just, this is the way it's done because this is the way it's done. Their motivation becomes because this is the way it's done, not because, the reasons behind why you have to fill out this form and why you can't just get that license or whatnot.
I mean, I guess I was just going to challenge that and just say, I don't think that you were really motivated by getting coal out of the ground. I think you were motivated by the money, and I would say that because I think even if you were at Rio, like doing, I don't know, planting trees or getting whatever, lithium out of the ground or whatever, it wasn't actually that. You're motivated by whatever it was that you had to do for that company to get the money.
Because I think there's the point where maybe a bit semantics here, but I think you get confused enough that it becomes your reality. And then you could say, if the money just disappeared, would I still be wanting to get coal out of the ground? No, obviously. But I think you get confused enough that you will then think that is the main thing. I 100% think that happens to like everyone. I think your motivations the linkage becomes too great, too tenuous, too long, and you lose track of what is the most important thing, which is why I asked you the question in the first place, because, why do you do work? Oh, because, I get paid. Well, why do you get paid? Because I produce this amount of things. Okay, why do you produce this amount of things? Because it's good for this. And then you go down the track, and then next thing you know, you're working your ass off for some weird reason, and it's not linking back enough to the jobs.
Yeah.
So for myself, I've started to develop like a list or just some prompts to ask myself, like what is the motivation, and definitely is it linking back to something higher? Can I make that linkage more apparent? So for me, it'd be something like, I just want it to be something unambiguously good or neutral. Like, it just, as long as it's not doing harm. So there's where I would sort of see, like with the podcast, one thing that could be doing harm is I could be contributing to, I don't want to say misinformation, but just wrong things. Like just casually chucking something out. If I was like a really bitter person and I was just spewing bitterness out onto the world, I think doing that via the podcast and then having more people exposed to bitterness, I think that would be a harm. I think that would be doing bad to people. When I look at a bunch of the things I do, is handstands doing harm to people? No. I'm pretty sure that's not.
And I think that's where people, and we've got to be careful that people externally will see you or view you as an individual and be like, oh, you're doing this for 3 hours. You could have been doing 3 hours to volunteer, let's say, right? Or something to that effect. But you got to be like,
I was thinking,
very adamant, being like, well, no, it's like, it's what it is like to you. To you, it's neutral or positive to the world. Now, to you, doing handstands is neutral. Like, you're not taking away anything from anybody else.
No.
That.
You can't. Yeah, I know what you're getting, but you can't say you doing bad is the same as you not doing something. There's like a, this getting to the heart of philosophy. What's the difference between you flicking the switch on the trolley problem and you letting people die? Is you taking an action the same as you not taking an action? That sort of thing. So I get that. I'm pretty, but I would say no. Me not doing something is not bad in this case.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's. I was trying to differentiate for people. I think you can't get into that. You can't get into that mindset of, oh, you're choosing to spend your time doing this for 3 hours, but instead you could be doing all this good. That's a harm. No, that's not how it works. That's either because the activity that you choose to do for you, it is just a neutral or non-negative for the world. It doesn't have to be positive. Like, it doesn't actually mean like you have to be doing the 100% maximum thing. If that's the case, give away everything and just never do anything for yourself, right? But that's not.
Yeah, I was thinking about this with regards to jobs as well. If someone was saying that, I'd be like, "What's your job? Oh, you're in HR. You think you're doing good to the world, doing HR? Get the fuck out of here." That sort of thing. So, and that's how I view most jobs. And I would find it really hard to look at a job and be like, yeah, that's unambiguously doing good for the world as a whole, like, that sort of thing.
Even like moving away from like the semantic, you could do that to everything. You could do that to every single, almost any action anybody takes. Like, but you could be doing this and it'd be much better to the world.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever. But the reality is, no, we live in the world that we live in today, and there's other things that you have to do. Like, sure, yes, but then getting back to motivations, also you're motivated to like live, so you also need money to go and do X, Y, Z. You're also motivated by the fact that you want to eat, so you might have to go and do things so that you have the money to afford eating, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So, yeah, for me, it's like just as long as I don't fall into the really bad ones. Am I using up an absorbent amount of energy or electricity for whatever it is I'm doing? No, this stuff is pretty simple. If I decided, like, for the Bitcoin mining, and then I started getting a full node, and then I started, getting deep into the mining aspect, and then next thing I know, I have a data center chewing up tons of energy, I would have to, like, be really, really convinced that Bitcoin is 100% the best thing for the world to be able to use up that amount of energy, for example, things like that. So The problem though is like the more influential you get, I think the more your actions just can be huge on a grand scale. If Tim Ferriss says something on his podcast, you know, he has that sort of control, that sort of power is like, it's hard to comprehend. And you know, he's just a normal dude. He just talks about jailbait randomly for a fucking laugh on the podcast, and then next thing you know, people are like, Tim Ferriss is a pedophile. Tim Ferriss is etc. etc. It's like, man, he's just coming up with some bullshit, you know. So, yeah, I also am like, this unambiguous good, like this motivation thing that I'm trying to set for myself. If I had $100 million, that I'm not sure that would be useful, because it would be like every action I could take would probably, you'd be able to make a good argument of like, no, that's a bad thing for the world. You shouldn't have done that, etc.
The only thing I had left really on the motivation side of things was just not allowing what I guess I would say maybe culture's motivations or the world's motivations infiltrate as much of the decisions of what motivates you to do your things. And so maybe I did say earlier, no, I didn't really have anything that kind of influences, but maybe I do. Where I do have like a goal, and it's one of the yearly goals, where it's focused more towards growth and learning and personal experience than it is money and fame and adulation. And I actually did make that decision, a couple of months ago now, of moving from a job where I was getting paid real good money to go somewhere else to get paid less money, but somewhere where, it might be more enjoyable, there's a lot more learning opportunities, etc., right? Now, I think if I was maybe a few years ago, my external motivations of perhaps, more money equals better, I reckon that's a generalization, but for the part, I reckon most people would say like, oh, more money? Yeah, better. I'll take that sort of option. Moving away from that and be like, no, I'm looking towards something that's going to fulfill other things which are intrinsic motivators of mine and actually know that make me happier, like learning and growth and whatnot, rather than just the pure external of, oh, well, you got more money, or you got a better role or a better title or something like that. And that's been a good choice. So I think there's always a danger, and I haven't come across anybody who's been able to completely, get away with it. Maybe you have to be, a Buddha or something to get to that level, but to be just purely intrinsic motivations, I don't think I've really met anyone like that, but being more towards following your own intrinsic motivations as opposed to external motivations, I think that's a good way to go about it. You can slide your way towards more internal motivations, but allowing external motivations to help out where you needed them to.
Yeah. I haven't mentioned this, but I'm proud of you for that one, man. I thought that maybe you would be, not that I know your every aspect of your financial details and all that, but from what I could tell, you didn't really need the money. So I'm pretty proud of you for
that was a hard one. That was genuinely, I reckon I would never have done that in the past. Like, I'm thinking of all my years, the way I was raised, the way my mentality would have been of being like, oh, I'm on here. And I'm like, we're not talking here like, I'm talking like five digit figures, like going down in terms of salary, which again, it's not like I'm screaming for money right now, but by the by, I was like, okay, that's actually a call that I was like, oh wow, that's an interesting call that I've made here. And at the time felt a little bit like, this is feel a bit weird, like what am I doing? But then, after a couple of weeks now, it's been a whole month, it's like awesome. It's a good decision I've made. So
yeah,
so it's good.
Good. All right, I think that's a good place to end it off.
Awesome.
on motivations, about Juan's correct decision. People, let's try and make more correct decisions in life.
A couple of podcasts later, I'll be like, oh, it was a shit decision I've ever made.
God, like, oh shit, all my NFTs down to zero. I really could have used those 5 digits. So, yeah, a question for those at home. What motivates you? What do you think about, your motivations, and have you tried looking deeper beneath them? And have you ever had an experience where you got caught up in something where you realized at some point, like, hey, I'm just doing this for this sake, and it's like I've lost the track of what was actually, like, I used to be in this non-profit for helping the world be better, and now I'm just doing it for the money, or doing it for the prestige or fame or whatever. I think real world examples of that are pretty fascinating. So if you want to send through any of those, plenty of methods to do it. You can do it on the YouTube comments if you're listening via there. You can send us an Instagram message via Instagram, but the best and most preferred way is via a boostergram.
Boost.
Go to Breeze, Curocaster, Podfriend, Fountain FM, Castomatic. Those are the main ones. You can send us a boostergram.
Actually, so on YouTube, one of our most popular videos in the Mere Mortals podcast, obviously it's YouTube specific, was one of the boostergram
They shared
clips.
it on Twitter, that's why.
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
okay, there you
yeah.
go.
I
That's
posted
why.
on Twitter. I tagged in a couple of people. They retweeted it.
Gotcha.
and
Okay.
etc.
Fair enough.
So-
But there you go. Get the word out on the boostergram.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why like a lot of our stuff hasn't blown up. We're not. Me and Juan are, I would say
No.
we're not good marketers.
No,
I
no,
think
no.
that's the one thing we really struggle with. With
marketing, and it's not even like we put much effort into marketing, to be honest. Like, I can think in my mind right now, like, oh, there's like this strategy we could do on Instagram. There's these different posting that we could do. At the end of the day, it's like I think we see it as a lower priority thing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you stumble upon the Mere Mortals, or the Mere Mortal book reviews, or the Valley for Valley podcast, and you enjoy it, we hope you enjoy it and you stick around because we're giving you value. Like, we're giving you value in the sense that it's maybe you're learning about the Mere Mortals, us. Maybe you're getting something that you can take away. You can talk to people about it.
I'm not even giving value because I really hate. I think value is like sort of like growth for growth's sake. Oh, value for value's sake.
Yep.
I just want to say we're giving. We're giving more than we're taking. That's what I'm hoping. So
Giving more than we're taking. I like that.
whatever I'm giving, like it could be funny. It could be an interesting thought. Could be look at these dumbasses with their witch's hat and bear ears on their head and whatnot.
Yeah.
Could be that, but as long as I'm just giving more and I'm not taking away your time, which I am forever grateful for of people's time. I don't want to, and that's why I think marketing-wise, I don't want to get good at marketing, man. I don't want to get good at really like hijacking people's time. I sort of on the route of like we talked with Aussie Pete and he was talking from Aussie English, and he was talking about the thumbnail game and whatnot, and he kills at it. He's really good at it. We sort of discussed like, oh, do we want to do that? And it's like, oh no, because it'll get a bit clickbaity. It'll get a bit, we'll get really good at Photoshop and whatnot. Do I really want to get good at Photoshop in life? I want to get good enough that I can do funny things with the thumbnails, but do I want to get good so that I can capture people's attention? I don't know. And maybe that's why we'll never be like the most famous. Well, we won't for sure, but why we might be capping ourselves at this limit and not going worldwide just because we're probably not going to focus on
I
that
asked this
aspect.
question to and it's in a the interview will already be out for Everyday Sloth when this comes out,
correct.
but there was a question that I posed there which kind of applies similar to us, and it's would I prefer 3,000 listeners listening to us with an amazing culture and amazing information being shared between us with a let's say non-maximal amount of like monetary value or like implied value for the whole ecosystem over, would I like prefer that over 100,000 people listening to us with not as an engaged culture, lots of people, lots of information shared, but and we're getting lots of money from it, but you're losing the whole motivation of where it started in the first place. I think I'd go with the 3,000. Right? Like that's kind of like my mentality with this particular venture in any case.
And that's where someone would be like, you're by not promoting yourself, you're doing harm to the world.
I get it, because you're not giving the which I think no, you can't go down that path.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
That's a fool's errand.
I think that's a shitty argument for sure.
Yeah, don't do that argument, folks. Anyways, we'll leave it at that for now. Mere Mortal Lights, I hope you enjoyed the Musings conversation. Hope you enjoy your Halloween, however you celebrate it all over the world. Mere Mortal Lights, that's it. One out.
Happy Halloween. Current out.
Ooh.